Thank you so much, Maine. I appreciate that. I'm so excited to have you guys here with us for an hour. We are going to do a deep dive in Design Space and really talk about some of the actions in Design Space. If you're joining me on a tablet device or a mobile device, I will touch on where to find the things I talk about, my presentation, and I'll be working on my desktop device. So just to let you know what you're going to be seeing. In the first bit of the class, we are going to do a slideshow presentation about Design Space and taking that deeper dive. So I really recommend you grab your notebook and a pen so you're ready to write notes. This is where I'm going to be giving you all the information. So if I suggest you hold your questions through this section of the class, and then because I think I'll make everything clear for you as we're going through. And then when we start working together, please feel free to ask questions as we go along. I do have Anita with me today, and she'll be answering questions on the Q&A section. And I'll also jump in every now and then and grab some of those questions and answer them live. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we can start chatting about actions in Design Space. All right, so this is whether you're joining us with an Explore machine, a Maker, or a Cricut Joy, all three of these machines work with Design Space. And Design Space is Cricut's proprietary software that allows you to communicate with your machine. If you're joining us on a mobile device, when you open up Design Space, everything you need is down here at the bottom of the mobile device screen. So if you're on a tablet device, it's all along the bottom here and it's open. If you're on a mobile device like a phone, you do have to scroll across, but everything we talk about, you'll be able to locate down here at the bottom of your screen. And I do have my iPad next to me, so when we go into working on our project together, we'll be able to talk about that, and I'll be able to pinpoint some of those things for you. Now, your layers panel is a section on the right side of your screen. If you've taken our beginner class before, we really go into an overview of Design Space, where you have your design panel on the left side, your header and your edit bars are along the top, and then this right side here is your layers panel. And it's called a layers panel because as you add layers to your canvas, you start stacking your layers up in the layers panel. So almost like a cake layer. So a layer can be a text, it can be an image, or it could be a shape. Now, when you have selected a layer, when you've clicked on the layer, you'll see these quick edit icons pop up, and that lets you know you selected a layer. Also in the layers panel, the layer you have selected will be a little bit of a darker color. And you can even see there's a little thumbprint of the image in the layers panel. So as you add more layers onto your canvas, you'll see these layers kind of stack up on top of each other. Now, I want to point out up here on the top of the layers panel, you'll notice these two icons here, group and ungroup, they're grayed out or ghosted. And when you see an icon that is grayed out, it means that it's not applicable to what you have selected on your canvas. So as you select things on your canvas, like I have just this single shape selected, so I could in my layers panel duplicate this or delete this layer. Now, as you begin to add layers to your panel, like I said, they stack on top of each other. So your most recent layer will be at the top of your layers panel, which is your triangle layer, was the last layer put on. And just talking about the icons you see in the layers panel, these eyeballs, when you click on an eyeball and hide that layer, the layer is still there. It's still part of your project, but it's just hidden right now. So if I were to send this to my machine, I wouldn't send the triangle layer. So hidden layers are not sent over. But by clicking on the eyeball again, I can make the layer reappear on my canvas. You'll also notice in the layers panel that each layer has an operation next to it. And the operation refers to what you're going to be asking your Cricut machine to do. With these images here, the square and the triangle will be cut where the circle will use a pen and draw that circle out. So you can see here what each layer will be, what operation you'll be doing to each layer. Now I mentioned before that that tricky little group icon was ghosted out, and now it's a dark color. So that means I have at least 2 layers selected. And when I look at my canvas, I have the square and the circle layers are both selected, and they have those quick edit icons around each corner. And I could then group these layers together. Now, when you group layers together, you're holding multiple layers, and they could be images, text, or shape, and you're holding them together on the canvas so you can move those layers and resize them. So if you want to make a note about what group is, group holds layers together on the canvas so they can be resized and color changed together. From your layers panel here, as you look down at the bottom of the layers panel on your desktop or laptop, you'll notice this section of icons in the bottom. These icons are called the action icons. And if you use a tablet device, in the bottom middle of the tablet, you'll see an icon that says actions. And when you click on that icon, these different options pop up. So this is really what we're going to focus on today. These are the action icons, and this is really where we take that deeper dive into the layers panel. They're called slice and weld, attach, flatten, and contour. In today's class, we're really going to focus on the first 3, the slice, the weld, and attach. So what is slice? Slice is when you can cut one shape from another shape or delete a portion of a shape. So this example here with the square and the circle, I have the circle overlapping the square. So this cut line here at the edge of the circle would cut out of the square. And the square line here behind, you can't see it, but the square line back here would cut into the circle. So with slice, you must have only 2 layers selected. And when you have those 2 layers selected, you'll notice down at the bottom, that slice icon is a darker color. So when I have 2 layers selected and I choose slice, this is the result that you get. So we started off with the square and the circle. I selected both layers, and then I hit slice. And when I did that, where those layers overlapped, one on top of the other or one below the other, it actually cut those cut lines right out of the other shape. So you'll see in my layers panel, I started off with just a square and a circle, and then I duplicated it, copied it, and sliced. Then I was left with these 4 shapes here. Now, slice can also work like a cookie cutter, where you have one shape completely overlapping another shape. So the green star here is completely overlapping into the yellow square. When I have these 2 layers selected and I choose slice, it actually works like a cookie cutter and cuts right out of the yellow square. So leaving me with 3 layers instead of 4. So slice works, so if you're taking notes, slice works with only 2 layers, and it works to divide or cut completely out. So you can either do, an overlapping portion of it or a complete image, one on top of the other. Weld is the opposite of slice. Weld removes these overlapping cut lines and joins these shapes together into a single layer. So when I have more than 2 layers selected in weld, you can use 2 or more layers, slice only 2 layers. So make that note, slice only 2, weld 2 or more. So when I select these 3 layers and I choose in my layers panel, my action panel down here, the weld, these 3 layers will become a single layer. Now I want you to notice my slice icon down here in my actions panel is grayed out. And that's because you cannot slice 3 layers together. So when you see that happen, go back and make sure you only have 2 layers selected. But with weld, again, you can use 2 or more layers. So I have these 3 hearts selected, I select weld, and now they become 1 layer. Let me go back and show you. I have these 3 different hearts here, each is its own layer. When I've selected all 3 layers and I weld them, they merge together and form a single layer. So you no longer have the cut lines between the different layers, and they are all the same color and 1 layer. Now with weld, and let me just touch on one other thing to make a note of. With weld and slice, you can't unweld or unslice. So once you've done that action, the only way to undo the action is to go back and go back steps. Attach and group, you can attach and ungroup. So attach is the 3rd icon we're going to talk about today, the 3rd action icon. Attach holds your images together on the canvas. So you can have multiple layers and hold them together. It attaches all the layers that are selected to each other. The difference between group and attach is group only does it on the canvas, where attach communicates to your cutter. So let me explain what I mean when I say attach. If I were to want to make a vinyl design with the coffee cup and use the words pumpkin and junkie, I would merge them together and create this design here. So I've got it sized and I have everything positioned how I want it. I have my 3 different layers in my layers panel. When I send it to my machine to cut without attaching, the machine lays each layer out across the top of your mat and then down the side. So because these layers were just individual layers, when I send it to my machine to cut, this is how it looks. It comes across and separates them. If I want those layers to stay together, I need to select all 3 layers, choose the attach icon in the bottom, and then it will be sent over like this, and it holds that position relative to each other. So why would you use attach over weld? Well, each layer in attach is still an individual layer. So I could come back and change the word pumpkin to mocha and be a mocha junkie, or I could change it to hot cocoa junkie or anything like that. If I were to weld these 3 pieces together, they would become 1 layer, and it would be much harder to just replace 1 word. So attach holds everything together and communicates that placement to your cutter, and will cut it in the same position you have it on your desktop. So here's just a quick definition of group and attach. The main difference between the 2 is group. When you hold things together with group, that positioning isn't communicated across to your machine. Now, weld will marry those layers together so that it now becomes 1 layer. So those are the 3 different ways to hold layers together. It's group, attach, and weld. And you would use different ones at different times. So this is the project we're going to make today. We'll be using some circle shapes and a heart shape and some letters of Be Mine. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And I'd like to invite everyone to go ahead and open up Design Space. If you are on a tablet or a mobile device, I know it can be tricky to have Zoom open and your design space at the same time. So what I like to do is give you the instruction and show you how to do it. Then I erase that on my screen so we can do it together. This way it keeps everybody working along the project. So why don't I go ahead and open up I'm going to share my screen and open up Design Space. Now, as we're moving along, if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know in the Q&A, and Anita and I will do our best to answer those questions. So when you open up Design Space, if you've taken our beginner class, you know this is the home screen, and here's the project we're going to be making. I've already got it done there, but we're going to start from scratch so you guys can learn how to make the project. Once you learn how to slice and weld, it opens up a whole new world of being able to create your own designs in Design Space. So we're going to do a few exercises first to get you comfortable with some of the icons and actions in Design Space. It's that little bit of a deeper dive. So to get started, on the design panel here, I want you to add a shape, a circle shape to your canvas. So I'm just going to go to my design panel, I'll select shapes, and I'm going to add a circle. Now the circle automatically comes in as a 2x2 shape. I can go to my edit bar and select it to change the size. So I'm going to change it to a 4-inch circle like that. So that's on my edit side. That's on the edit tab. So if you're on a tablet device, you need to enter the shape and then the edit. Now also on that edit bar up here, I can change the color of my shape, and I can do that by clicking on this little box next to the operation. I can click on that and a drop-down menu of different colors shows up. So we're going to change this color to red. Okay, so that's the first step. So I'd like everybody to go to your design panel, grab your shapes, select a circle. It's on your canvas. It comes in as gray. You need to change the width and height of the circle. Now, since it's a circle, you only have to change one, the width or the height. So in the edit, we'll change it to 4 inches. And then we're going to change that color to red. Now, you'll notice I have these quick edit icons around the edge of the shape, and that lets me know I have this shape selected. So with your finger or a mouse, so somebody's asking, please repeat how to see Kesley and Design Space on my laptop at the same time. You just need to minimize your windows. So make your Zoom window smaller and your Cricut window smaller so you can have them both up next to each other if you'd like. Now with my circle here, you can see I have these quick edit icons on the circle. If I click off the circle and anywhere on the canvas, those go away. When I click back on the circle, those quick edit icons come back up. That lets me know how I have selected a layer or unselected a layer. So what you want to do is I'd like everybody to take a moment and click on the circle and then just touch somewhere off the canvas. And you see those icons go away. Also, look at your layers panel and see how when you don't have those icons around your layer is a light gray color. And then when you click it, it goes to a darker gray color. So if you're on a tablet device, you want to have that layers panel open, which is at the bottom. And you're just doing this with your pointer finger on a tablet device. And if you're on a desktop or laptop, you're just using your pointer finger on the left side of your mouse. And you're just touching around the different spaces like that. Okay, so now that's important to know how to select a layer and how to unselect a layer. So everyone should be very comfortable doing that. Selecting a layer, clicking somewhere on your canvas and unselecting the layer. Now what we want to do is select that circle and we're going to duplicate the circle. Now, if you're on a desktop or laptop, you can have the circle selected, right-click the circle, and a drop-down menu shows up to duplicate, and you can duplicate the circle that way. Let me show you that again. So I have my circle selected, quick edit icons, I know it's selected. I'm going to hover over my circle with my mouse, my cursor. I'll right-click with the drop-down menu and select duplicate. And then I have two circles on my desktop. So everyone, please do that. Click on your icon and on your circle, right-click on it and duplicate. Now, if you're on a tablet device, you want to open up Edit, and you will see duplicate is about the 7th one over. You'll see the duplicate option. And there are other ways to do this. So if you have other ways of duplicating using your keyboard or the layers panel, please feel free to do that as well. Now, once we have two circles on our canvas, we're going to go back up to our edit bar. And again, you're just going to select the color and change that second circle to yellow. And again, if you are on a tablet device, you want to click in edit, and then right next to the operation, you'll see a little circle, and that's where you change the color. Okay. So now you should have a red and a yellow circle on your canvas. And what I'd like you to do is just practice jumping back and forth with your finger or with your mouse and cursor, selecting the red and then selecting the yellow, selecting the red and then selecting the yellow. Then you can click anywhere on the canvas to deselect both. Now, when you have nothing selected, I want you to be able to select two icons, two shapes. So what we're going to do is you just touch off the canvas. So over here, see my cursor? I'm just going to, with my mouse, click on that and hold my left cursor down and drag that across both shapes, releasing that. Now I have selected two layers. And it works the same way on a tablet or mobile device. You just hold onto the screen and drag across the two layers to select multiple layers. So this is how we select multiple layers. We just click off the screen on the canvas somewhere, drag it across. Now you have that box around both of your layers. So then once you know how to select both layers, let's go ahead and overlap that red and the yellow layer. So you'll have a little bit of overlap right between the two layers. And then select both of those layers again. And this time we are going to slice. So once you have it selected together, go to your action icon and choose slice. Now, once you do that, you have these 4 different layers. Let me show you. Now you have 4 different layers. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I've got my 2 circles. I overlap my yellow onto the red. I select both layers. I go to my actions panel and my slice is lit up. So I select slice. And now I have these 4 different layers. All right, we're going to do that one more time. And then I want you to do it on your own. So you've got your 2 circles, and you should only have 2 circles on, your canvas. You're going to take one circle, and it doesn't matter which one, you're going to overlap it onto the other circle. Then we're going to click somewhere on the canvas, select both of those circles. And then when you did that, once you do that, you'll notice your slice icon opens up, and we're going to slice those together. Now we're going to separate those out and have your inner circles here, those little cut pieces, will have those two overlap. So this is, I always say this is a great project if you have to do something for the moon phases. This is a great way to kind of cut out your moon phases and show your waxing and waning moons. Okay, so now I have my two inner pieces, and I'm just going to show you they're, you know, you can see where they were overlapped and they sliced. Then I'm going to take this yellow inner circle and overlap that onto the red circle there. So I'll have my two little inside pieces, we'll have those overlapping. Now, once those are overlapping, I want you to select just the inner pieces. Sometimes when you have layers that are close to each other, it can be a little challenging to select just those two inner pieces. So if you watch this, I can click off my canvas, off my shapes, and select them that way. And then I have just those two. But again, sometimes if they're really close, it can be hard to just select one or two shapes without getting the other. So if that's the case, you can select one shape that you want to not select and hide that shape. So I can hide that big red shape there. Let me show you how I did that again. I selected the big red shape. I went to my layers panel and I selected the eyeball, and that hid that layer. Okay. So we have that, I can hide that layer. So if you're trying to get a piece of something and it's hard to do it, you can hide the layers around it and it makes it a little bit easier. So if everybody would please grab these two inner circle pieces here, because now what we want to do is we want to marry those together and make those into a single layer. And if you look at your layers panel, if you want to watch me do it first and then we can do it together, I have a yellow layer, that's the small inner circle, and the red layer, that's the small inner circle. So when I weld just those two, they become one. And you see now those two layers are now one layer at the top of my layers panel. So let's do that together. Just grab those two inner circle ones. And then we want to weld those together. Now, keep in mind that when you weld, you can actually weld two or more layers, but when you slice, you can only slice two layers. So if you want to look at my screen again, if I grab these 3 layers, or if I grab all 4 layers, you'll see my slice icon isn't active. So it's not going to, I can't slice. And that's because I have 4 layers selected. So in order to slice, you must have only 2 layers selected. But I could take 3 of these shapes like this, and I could weld these together, and now I would have 1 shape there. But for this, all I just want you to do is grab those 2 middle pieces and weld them together. Okay, now, then we're going to go to the make it icon. And I want you to see, when you don't have to do this step, you can just watch me do this. When I say I'm going to make it, and I'll be using it on a mat, you'll see that it put my red on one mat and my yellow on one mat, but it moved my red up to the top. This red piece on my screen was right in the middle. So when I go back to my canvas, I want to make sure these are all lined up. All three layers are lined up horizontally. So you can select all the layers you're working with. And I'm going to kind of bring mine down here so you can really get an idea of what this does. You can grab your layers and go up to the edit icon, edit bar, select align, and then select center horizontally, center center, center vertical, and it will align everything either on a horizontal line or on a vertical line. Now I'm going to undo this, and you can either undo using this back arrow, or if you're on a keyboard, Control Z or Command Z, I think, if you're on a Mac. We're going to select all 3 of these, and we're going to align vertically. So we're going to give it a center line right across the center of these images. And this time I'm going to attach them. So now they'll all cut as one color out of vinyl. So I go like this, and now they're going to cut as one color, and they're all, they hold their position when I send them to the screen. So that is your warm up exercises. You now know how to slice and weld. You know how to find shapes, and you know how to add shapes and work with your edit bar a little bit. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and select all of those layers with your cursor and delete those layers. So we're just going to say delete. So go ahead and delete those layers, and let's get started on our project. The first thing we're going to want to do is add a shape of a circle again. So everyone should be really comfortable with doing that. And we will measure your blank so you get the finished design the size you want it at the very end before we send it to our cutter. So right now we're just all going to make the same size. So you need to add a 2x2 add a circle to your canvas, and we want this to be 4 inches big. Now, if you're working in centimeters, that will be 10.16. If you're working in inches, you're going to do 4 inches like that. And then we're going to duplicate this circle. So for my duplicate, I will go and left click on it and select duplicate. And this circle, I want this one to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to make it 3.75 inches around. Now, this will fit perfectly into that other circle. And what we're going to do is select both of those circles and then align in the center. Okay, so let me do that one more time. And so that if you don't have both screens up, you won't get lost behind. So go to your shapes, select a circle shape, and change the size to 4 inches. And that's our first circle shape. We're going to duplicate our circle, go to your edit bar, and change it to 3.75 inches and hit enter. Now, if you want to see, I have these shapes like this, and I select both of the shapes. So I'll click off the canvas, drag around those 2 shapes, align right in the center, like a bullseye, right in the center. Now, I select the next step, select those 2 shapes again. So you'll have both of the circles selected, and go ahead and choose slice. Okay, so now we'll have a ring, because we did like a cookie cutter. We have the inside of our circle and then an outside circle. We don't need 2 inside circles, so one of these you can delete. So I would take in your layers panel, select that top circle, and go ahead and delete that top circle. Now on our ring, so you should have the ring and the circle, and now we can change our colors again. So the 3.75 inch circle, and if you're in centimeters, that's 9.525. Change that circle to a light pink. And it does, if you have light pink vinyl, that's great. If you're working with different colors, that's okay too. So you can change it to your lighter color if you want. And I have pink and red today to work with. So I'm going to do a 4-inch circle like that and turn that one red. Now, again, we can select both of these and we can align into the center. Myra Jo, on your tablet device, your duplicate icon is down in the actions icon, and it's the 3rd one from the right side is duplicate. Okay, now we're just going to add a heart. So go ahead and grab your shape, grab the heart, and bring that onto your canvas. Now, if we made the heart 4 inches, it would go right to the edge of our circle. So the width of your heart, you want to make it 3.8 inches. So it just overlaps into your circle. And then, so it'll, let me enlarge my canvas here. Okay, so it just overlaps into that the red circle there. See how it can overlap the edge into there? That's really all you need. And if you want to, if you want it to be smaller or larger, you can unlock the proportions and change your heart this way if you wanted to. You can just manually change it. So it's a little bit shorter if you wanted, or you can make it super long if you wanted. However you like the heart, or just as it came in is good too. So I'm gonna leave it like that. Now I'll select all 3 layers, and then I'm going to align center again, just to make sure everything's aligned. Oops. Bring that back down there. I'm not sure why that did that. Let me grab my circle and my heart and the ring, and we'll align center that. Let's see if that does it. Did the same way. Okay, I want to have my heart, maybe you just manually have to position your heart so it overlaps but doesn't go over the edge. We want to keep it inside the edge of the circle, inside the ring. Now this is where I mentioned, when you just want to select 2 layers, but you have 3 layers stacked one on top of the other. So it's really hard to get just the ring and the heart layer selected. You can hide this back circle layer, and then you'll just have the ring and the heart shape on your canvas. So let me show you how I did that. I went to my layers panel. I selected that back circle and I closed the eye. Now it's hidden. I don't see it. So I can click anywhere on the canvas and drag around both shapes and select both shapes. So let's do that together. So go ahead and hide your pink circle, that back circle, whatever color you have. Click anywhere on the canvas and drag it around. And then we're going to weld. So we're going to weld this together and make it into one piece. And we're going to bring our heart back. So now you should have a shape like this on your canvas. And we can have that. And I'm just going to move mine up a little bit. Last thing is to add our text. So Cricut Sans is Cricut Sans is the can't think of the right word, the automatic default. It's the default font. Sorry. Cricut Sans is the default font for Design Space. So whenever you start with text box, Cricut Sans comes up. And Janet would like me to show how I did the weld again. So I'm going to undo back to that point and show you guys how I did that weld again. So I have the black back circle there that I hid that circle. India, yes, this is being recorded and you'll get a recording. I would definitely recommend, as Jimena said when we came in, to subscribe to the Michael's channel, and then you'll see that. Okay, so hide that, your circle, your full circle, hide that. Select both of the ring and the heart layers, select both of those layers. And in your actions panel down here, like if you're on a tab, if you're on a phone, if you're on a desktop or laptop, it should be down at the bottom. You want to select weld. And then it welds it together like that. And the heart was about 3.8 inches. So it was inside the circle, but not overlapping the circle. Okay. Great. Now, if you leave, Nicole, good question. Nicole's saying, what happens if we leave the pink circle not hidden while welding? So let me show you. I can go and use, on my desktop, I can hold the control icon, the control key, and select just my heart and my ring. my ring, oh, control and then shift. And that holds just the heart and the ring layers. And then I can weld those together and I don't have to hide that pink layer. But as a beginner, it's frustrating because you're like, I just want those 2 layers. Why can't I just get those 2 layers? So it is easier just to say, just hide it. And then you can select what you want and then unhide it. So I hope that answers that question. Okay. So now you can see if I separate these 2, I should have these 2 shapes here. Okay, now we're going to go and add text. So we're going to go to the text icon in your design panel. And it pulls up the box for text. And so you can just write whatever you'd like to write in there. I'm going to write love you. And it automatically comes in with Cricut Sans. If you have Cricut access, you can select a different font. So it's okay. It doesn't, whatever font works for you. Cricut Sans is free, so everyone can use that one. We're going to change the width of our words to be 4 inches. And then line those up underneath the love you. And if you want it to touch, you can, or you might not want it to. But again, you can select all 3 layers and do that align, center, horizontal, and it pushes everything so it lines up really nice within each other. Judy is asking, where is the hide? The hide is that eyeball in the layers panel. Janet, great question. She says, why does mine show a black line around the shapes? That black line is around all the shapes and it indicates where something is going to be cut. So that lets you know where something's going to be cut. Now you should have everything all lined up. And with our text, I'm going to show you this because you guys are doing such an awesome job. And I have a couple extra minutes. I'm going to show you when you have a text layer. So I have my text layer. I've selected just the text layer. My text edit bar up here is active. So there are things I can choose. I'm going to choose curve. And then I'm going to curve my letters and I'm going to curve them up around my sign like that. So now they kind of hug around my circle there. And then if you wanted to, you could even change your spacing and make your letter spacing shorter, like maybe closer together, move your letters closer together. So let's do like a -0.5. I can go a little bit more, -5. Oh, too close. Let's do a -1. There we go. And then again, you would just have to realign that up. So you select all 3 layers and align center horizontally like that. Okay, I'm going to show you that one more time, how I did that curve, how I did my text. So I don't think the curve text is on a tablet or mobile device. So if you're on a tablet or mobile device, the curve text is not an option. So first I wrote out love you and I'm making that 4 inches wide. So it'll be the same width as my circle here. I'll change my letter spacing to a -2. Let's see how, oops, that's kind of cute. Let's see how that works. I'll change that to a letter 2, a -2. And then I'm going to put that underneath my circle so I can kind of get an idea of how I want to curve it. With my letters only layer selected, I go to the edit bar and I select the curve icon. And then I just bring it to the negative so it curves up on my letters like that. So it'll just curve up. Go a little bit more like that. And yeah.
Kesley, you might have mentioned it, but the curve is only available on a computer.
Yes. The curve is only on a computer. It is not on a tablet or mobile device. That always catches me up. I use a desktop mostly, And so sometimes I forget what's on one over the other. So that is, and if you don't have the curve feature, it's still going to look really cute underneath your letters. You just might not want it so close together. Or if you do, you can, so see how my letters are overlapping here? I can weld this together and make that into one line, or I can change my -1.6, my spacing, 1.65. So I have a little bit more space between those letters. And if we have more time, I can kind of go through this a little bit more, but it is now time. We are ready to send this to our cutters. So if you've been working along with me, you want to make sure that your 0.8. All right, you want to make sure that your love you is right underneath your circle there, just align center horizontal, and it bumps that right below your circle. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can show you. I'm going to be putting this on a journal today, one of these little Artist Lofts journal from Michaels. And I'll use this as a family circle journal. So I'll write a note on it and leave it on somebody's bed. And then they write a note and put it on somebody else's bed. So it's a fun tradition to start around Valentine's Day. I'll use my tape measure and measure across my notebook here from one corner to the other corner. So it's about 4 inches. So that is as wide as I would want my design to be, would be 4 inches. I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller than that, and I'll show you how to resize it by sharing my screen again. So you just need to select all the layers, and you can resize it. Maybe I want it to be 3 inches wide, so I'll resize it to 3 inches wide. Now, I'll be using a pink glitter on the red portion of my design. So I'll probably want this love you to also be in the same color as my heart. So I'll select those 2 layers, my heart and my love you, and attach those layers together so that they cut out on the same paper and on the same material, and they hold that position. So now when I go to make it, so I've resized it, I'm ready to make it, and I'll be using a mat, and I'll be cutting the circle out of regular permanent vinyl, and I will cut the love you out of a shimmer vinyl. Okay, so now I'm ready to continue. And so my red, I'll be cutting this shape here, the red, my number 2 mat will be out of a glimmer vinyl, and this will be out of a permanent vinyl. So I'll cut this red first, and the pink, it's a permanent vinyl, and it tells me to load my fine point blade in, and I'm ready to send it over to my machine. So let me stop this, and I'll turn on my overhead camera so you guys can see that. There we go. If we have time, guys, I'll go back and do the curve option. I just kind of wanted to show you that is there, but let's keep moving on, and hopefully we'll have time so I can go back and show that. So my circle will be out of just the red permanent vinyl, and then I'll be using this shimmer vinyl for the top portion of it. And there's even, I love this holographic sparkle. It's such a pretty color. Now I do have 2 different transfer tapes. I have a strong grip transfer tape that I'll be using with the shimmer vinyl. And then I have my regular transfer tape, which I'll be using with the regular vinyl piece here. So I just put my vinyl, I've already kind of pre-trimmed it down, and I'm putting that on my mat. I'll load this into my cutter. And when I load it into my cutter, I want to make sure that my mat is kind of pushed up against the wheels here. And then I'm going to load this in, and then my light will flash and tell me it's ready to start cutting. So this is going to be the circle inside my shimmer. And the reason I do it that way is I don't like to put the shimmer as my bottom base because it does have a texture to it. I find that my vinyl will stick better if I put my vinyl down first and then the shimmer as my top layer. So when you're working on layers, you do want to have your shimmer vinyl as your top layer because it has a texture. So I like to put that as my top layer. So now I just put my pink down and I indicate in Design Space that this one will be cut from the shimmer. I go to materials and I do a search for vinyl. And then I just do the shimmer. So this is the great thing I love about Design Space. If you have an Explorer, you have the dial and you can do like the quick choice of your materials. And if you don't have the dial, you can use Design Space and choose your materials in Design Space. So either way, you get good precision cutting because it's all been tested and your software knows how much pressure to put on it, what you're cutting, how fast to cut it, and everything. So I'll just go ahead and weed my circle here. And I've lost my questions for a minute. So as soon as that pops back up, I'll be able to get my eyes back on your questions. So I have my circle weeded as that's cutting out there. Cheryl, to group your hearts and words, you need to select the heart layer and the words layer. And then you go down to the bottom and choose attach because you want to see how it cut. I don't know if you can see on my camera. Kind of hard to see there. You'll see in a minute when I weed it out. But the love you is in just the right spot with my heart. So everything stayed aligned. All right. Now I'm just going to trim this up again. Now, when you're layering your vinyl, there's a few different ways that you can layer your vinyl. One method is to do it before you put it on your blank or your material, what you're putting it on. So you can do it on just your vinyl backing, which is a great method, especially if you're just making this today and then you're going to add it to something later. Maybe you don't have your blank handy. That's how I like to do it that way. But if I'm doing it right on my blank, I like to do it with my first layer down, and then I'll add more layers on top of it. If I were doing it, if I were layering not on my blank first, you would want to do your base layer first. I'm sorry, you'd want to do your top layer with your transfer tape first, and then put that over your other layer. And I'll show you with I love to use the bright pad, especially a lot of times I'm crafting at night. So I'll use the Cricut bright pad, and I can just put my pieces down and layer them on top of each other and make sure I have everything in the right position before I start putting my vinyl on. So I can just make sure I've got it all positioned right. And then you can even tape them down as you go. So you can just use Scotch tape and kind of tape that down and then put your vinyl on, line this one up. Sorry, you'll line this one up. Put your transfer tape down. And then you can just kind of do like a hinge method up and down. But since I have my blank here, I'm going to transfer it right onto the blank, right onto my notebook. So I gotta make sure I have the right size. Okay, yep. All right, so this is my front. And to put my red circle down, this is just premium vinyl. So I'll use regular transfer tape. Now, the regular transfer tape, it has gray squares and your Cricut is written in gray. The strong grip transfer tape, which I'll be using for my heart, it's purple and it will say strong on it. So these are pieces I had in a drawer, but I knew I was able to say, okay, this is my regular transfer tape because it's gray and it doesn't say strong grip. And I knew that was strong grip because it's purple and it doesn't say, and it says strong grip on it. Now I love the transfer tape because it has the grid lines on the transfer tape. So it's really helpful when you're lining things up to already have that grid on there. And I'm just gonna line up the top of my transfer tape with the top of the vinyl and put that down. And then I can use my wedge and squeegee that down, make sure I work out any air bubbles or anything in my design. Your transfer tape, you can reuse multiple times. I will put it back on. I'll save my transfer tape backing. I'll put it back on there, and then I'll actually tuck it under my self-healing mat here so that I can easily access it later. So that's about the middle. And if you needed to, you could grab a ruler and put a ruler across your space. Or if you knew how much space you were working with, so like if I knew this was a 4-inch space, I could have cut this, my transfer tape, which actually it looks like it's almost perfectly in there. And then I just use the edge of my transfer tape along the edge of my notebook, so I know that I'm getting it lined up perfectly. I'm going to put that down here. So this is just my first layer is the permanent vinyl. And I'm removing now my transfer tape here.
Kesley, several people, when you have it not on your computer screen, they're not seeing what you're doing like right now. I don't know what to suggest for that. Do you? So they're not seeing what you're doing unless it's your computer screen.
So they don't see the camera?
Right.
Oh, I don't know.
But I see it fine. So I'm confused.
Okay. So maybe Jimena can take a crack at that one. She might be better at Zoom. Joelle asked a good question. How do you know which transfer tape to use? When to use strong grip transfer tape and when to use regular grip transfer tape? I use the strong grip transfer tape for textured vinyl. So this shimmer vinyl has a texture, chalkboard vinyl has a texture, and it actually comes in the package for the shimmer vinyl. You get a sheet of the transfer tape. So that makes it really easy to know when to use it that way. But I have used the wrong transfer tape, and you can tell. Like what will happen is if you use a strong grip transfer tape on regular vinyl, then it won't release the vinyl off of the transfer tape onto your blank. It will hold on to that vinyl on your transfer tape. So it makes it really difficult to get it to come off. Now, when I remove my backing of my vinyl paper, I do a rock and roll method. So I turn it over so my transfer tape is down. I take a corner of my vinyl backing and I roll the vinyl off of the transfer tape using the wedge to push down. And I do think this is a practiced technique. Like I know I have people tell me like, you make it look so easy. And it's just practice, practice, practice. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And using, I have to say, like two Cricut materials working together are a thing of beauty. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my heart in the circle, and I'm not pushing anything down yet. I'm just lining it up. I'll start at the top kind of and bring it down and make sure that I have it lined up perfectly on the top and then working my way on the sides and then down from there. I just can put that right there. And again, I use my wedge to make sure I don't have any bubbles in the backing, and then that will come right off for me. And you just start with a corner and work it back and peel it back. And if you need to, if your vinyl's kind of coming up a little bit, you can just use your wedge and push it down. And then you can save that transfer tape and put it over here. And if you have any bubbles, you can just work them out. Like I see one here, and I'll just kind of push them out to the edge and work it out that way. Almost gone. There we go. And get it out to the edge. And then you won't have any bubbles. He's still there. Sometimes too, like if you have a bubble that just will not come out, sometimes I'll use my weeding tool and I'll just pick up that little edge of it and get it to kind of pop out for me. You just have to get the air out from underneath it like that, and just be slow, just be intentional and get that right out like that. And that is our shape. That's your design. And you can put that on a tumbler. You can put that really anywhere. All right, did we get that worked out? What was causing them not to see the overhead? I'm not sure.
Most of them, yes.
Okay,
from
good.
what I'm seeing.
Okay. All right. So oh, nope, we're over time. I was gonna say I had a couple minutes to answer some more questions. Please do, I want to encourage you guys to share your projects with us on Instagram and Facebook. I'm on Facebook. My profile picture, I'm wearing a purple shirt. So, show me what you've got, tag me in what you've made. I have on the Michael's YouTube channel, there's lots and lots of previous classes we've done with Cricut and all kinds of goodness over there. So check it out as you want to learn more. And we have more classes coming in February. So be sure to sign up for those classes, and we'll look forward to seeing you. Oh, one last thing before we go. My paper rack is a super old from a fixture. A couple of people asked about that in the chat. It's just a super old store fixture. So that's where I got that. But Michael's has fantastic paper racks.
Thanks, everybody. For an amazing class, Kesley. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. See you on the next class.
Right,
bye.
Thank you.